I've been fortunate with BabyQuip. From the very beginning, we knew we were tapping into a market that there was a lot of demand for. Last year we did over 80,000 orders across the world. So I think we got product market fit. I think one of the things that I try and get in my for-profit company like BabyQuip is that passion and commitment that people have in the nonprofit world. I think for us, we are very motivated by helping families have a better vacation, which means maybe they sleep better or they have more fun or spend more time with their kids. I'm motivated by our quality providers becoming entrepreneurs. And for my team and I think we get a lot of gratification from that.
Hello, and welcome to the Show Your Value podcast, where we explore the art of value creation in three macro buckets: material value creation, emotional energy value creation, and spiritual value creation. I'm your host, Lee Benson, and today my very special guest is Fran Maier. Fran is a serial entrepreneur and super founder with over 25 years of experience pioneering category-disrupting B2C and B2B internet businesses. Fran is widely recognized for her leadership as a co-founder and first general manager of the online dating service Match.com, founder of the privacy compliance tech company TrustE, now TrustArc, and founder and CEO of her current venture, BabyQuip, the #1 global baby gear rental brand. She is also known for breaking boundaries as a Latina business leader. Fran is often sourced for insights and expertise in the areas of entrepreneurship, women in business, and family travel. She has appeared in major media like Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, Travel and Leisure, Wirecutter, Forbes, and CNBC, and is a regular podcast guest, contributing author, and keynote speaker. Fran is also a featured expert on entrepreneurship in the acclaimed documentary film She Started It, and has appeared on ABC's Shark Tank. Fran, thank you so much for being here today.
Great to be here, Lee. How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
So I know that you're into music. I'm calling from my music studio here right now.
Wow, nice.
Well, thank you.
Looks good.
Yeah, it's I'm actually halfway through recording an album with a band I recently formed, and I've been doing this for decades. I really enjoy it. When you say you're into music, do you go to festivals, concerts? What do you like to do?
Yeah, I love to go to festivals and concerts and operas and classical and the whole range of things. And also, I have two sons, and they are both musicians. My son, Joe, who also is BabyQuip's CTO, plays with a lot of jazz businesses, jazz bands and pickups, and used to do a bunch of weddings. So he's more of a performer. And then my younger son, Christopher, likes to write and compose and produce music. So it's a big part of our lives.
What instrument or instruments did Joe play?
They both started on piano as children, but they both play guitar. I mean, they own so many instruments. They need a whole room. They need a studio like you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is a power hobby for me. This is an amazing building I built right off my main house.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's so great. Well, I love with all of the stuff you do with business, and what we're going to get into this. You've got an amazing background. I really admire everything that you've done, that you still have time for hobbies and you do all of it. Really curious for the listeners. Where did you get the entrepreneurial bug, or how did it develop? Was there
I grew up here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and my dad was a business guy. He did insurance sales and pensions and things like that, and he was a big inspiration. He just passed in January, and it's allowed me a chance to kind of reflect on that gift of driving me to school and giving me math problems and telling me, about the deal he just closed, and, kind of an attitude of always be working it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then I went to Stanford undergrad, and this was in the early 80s. And the PC revolution was just starting to happen. I know that sounds like an anachronistic phrase, but if you were around back then, you might have heard that.
I was.
And I got out of, I went to business school sometime after I graduated from undergrad, also at Stanford. And There's a lot of emphasis on entrepreneurism, as you can well imagine. I didn't go into it right away. I went into marketing. But while I was at Stanford undergrad, I started a business selling yogurt, frozen yogurt.
Mm,
And that was probably the first time I really had to be in charge of marketing and hiring and pricing and all of that. And
mm,
then after business school, I did marketing, and then the internet happened. And I say that because I had to tell my kids, you don't understand. The internet happened. I had no idea I'd be an entrepreneur, but then the internet happened.
yeah,
And given my deep experience in marketing and brand, I was in a good place to take advantage of it.
yeah. But selling yogurt, like that's an option instead of working in the library or some local restaurant or something. And that was a choice, right? That's an
Oh
entrepreneur.
yeah, no, I had to bid for the opportunity and put together the team.
Yeah.
And I like the fact, and I still like the fact that as an entrepreneur, you basically decide when you want to work on and when.
Hmm.
And that flexibility, I think for women is really nice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, I remember back in the day as the internet was coming along, I still remember somebody asking me, "Do you have an email address?" And my response was, "What is that?"
Well, I saw the internet. I remember it pretty cleanly in early 1994, and I was working at AAA at the time here in Northern California. And I was reading a book called The One-to-One Future, which
Mm.
was about marketing using fax and audio text. Okay.
Yeah.
And, and then I saw the internet and I knew it would change everything.
Yeah, yeah, just incredible. You work with a lot of founders. From the research that I've done, it sounds like mostly women founders of organization, but some men as well. What are the biggest challenges that they typically run into when you're working with them? And I'm assuming that you probably help steer them in a healthier direction for a better chance of making it.
I think every startup has a challenge really making sure they understand what their business is and
Mm.
who their target is and how they're going to reach that target. So, the very basics of what problem are you trying to solve? How are you going to solve it? And who are you going to solve it for? You know,
Yeah.
that's kind of generic, but it's amazing how many times people aren't really focused on that, on just the basics. But that being said, I think with women, it goes a little bit further.
Mm.
I think women generally second guess themselves more often than not. There's the imposter syndrome, which you've heard about.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a lack of confidence. And sometimes there's the sense of, oh, this is too much to do. How am I ever going to solve these problems? Being overwhelmed. I'm not saying all the time, but these are just some observations that I've had. So I try and provide some guidance in those ways. I'll give you an example. One
Yeah.
of the, one of the gals I was working with sent this really long email. Well, number one, don't ever send really long emails. Okay. Two, she kind of buried the lead. In the email, she described changing the name of the company and the main product. I'm like, okay, that's like big news. That should be like in the headline.
Yeah.
And basically what with the long email and sometimes it's about explaining your thought process and so on. And it makes sense and women feel like we have to do that. But
Mhm.
it comes off, I think, to many men as insecure, you
And
know?
yeah. Yeah.
So my
Yeah. Go ahead.
advice in that one was, well, what would a guy do? And it would shorten it up, go with the big headline, the name change, and,
Yeah.
and say, and move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just a simple example. You know, on
Yeah.
pitch decks, I advise women, you've got to put your experience and your numbers up front. Because if you don't, unfortunately, most of the time we're pitching to groups of men. That's changing, but most of the time. And unfortunately, if you don't do it, they'll be spending their time thinking about, well, who are you? You know? So
Yeah.
just address it right away.
Yeah, it's always seemed to me that if we create the value, then the market will respond if the real value is there. And I know a lot of very successful women, and listening to their journeys, um, it was really hard for a lot of reasons and different until it wasn't. It was almost like their whole mindset changed. It's like they had success, they know what to do now. It's a formula, and they stopped listening to the inner voices or what any
Yeah,
naysayers.
that's a good place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of cool to get there. But I'm always surprised at how many startups think they know what the world wants, and that's not really what the world wants. So they don't sink their teeth into confirming it. What do you see there?
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's why you see a lot of pivots. Eventually, if it doesn't work, well, you're not going to be able to raise any more money or be able to grow. So,
Mm,
pivots are really big. I've been fortunate with BabyQuip. From the very beginning, we knew and BabyQuip delivers baby gear to traveling families. From the very beginning, we knew we were tapping into a market that there was a lot of demand for. And I think right now I'm looking at expansion, but I wouldn't call it a pivot. Our base baby gear business last year we did over 80,000 orders across the world. And
wow,
we have a 94 net promoter score, which
that's
is super
incredible.
high. Yeah. So I think we got product market fit.
Oh, I think you do. Kind of going back a little over a year ago, I think you had 900 sort of in this gig economy entrepreneurs out there working with you. What is it up to today?
2,200.
2,200. Man,
Yeah. Probably a little bit more. Yeah.
that's incredible. So you're
Mostly in the US, but we're really focused on expanding into Mexico and the Caribbean and also Australia, New Zealand, some European locations and so on. But, going international has its own set of issues.
Yeah,
So focused on that. Yeah.
yeah, it does for sure. I'm on my seventh company that I've started from scratch. One was in aerospace, and we were in about 60 countries, so I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Cultures are different, rules are different. It's definitely not a level playing field across the globe, but we make the best of it, right? Because that's what we do.
Right. You think about Mexico compared to the United States. So our model really bases our supply on who we call quality providers. These
Hmm.
are mostly moms. And it's beyond just renting their own gear. They really invest in buying more strollers and car seats and cribs. Over 50% have three or more cribs. And some of them have storage spaces and they're making really good money and so on. But then you look at Mexico, the middle class mother doesn't necessarily have the extra money to buy baby gear that's especially expensive in Mexico. So the dynamics are really different.
Yeah, do you help with that with any kind of microfinancing, or how does
No,
that?
not at this point, but that's certainly something we're willing to think about. There's also maybe we're looking at working more with people who, resort towns are our focus. People who work in those towns, maybe they do cleaning or washing of linens or other things. Maybe we partner with them.
Okay. And I'm assuming you handle the online marketplace for them with your
Yeah,
technology to
yeah.
make that work, make it easy. Okay. That is so great for families to earn extra money.
Oh, and, it's very inspiring to me too. Um, on average, they're bringing home about $1,500. Some are bringing home tens of thousands a month. It depends on how much they want to work.
Hmm.
But what's great about it is when they hit milestones, maybe an anniversary or the number of orders that they've completed, they'll post in our private community
Hmm.
and they'll say, "Well, BabyQuip allowed me to take my own family to Disney World," or BabyQuip allowed me to leave an abusive relationship, okay?
Oh, wow.
Because I could do this with my kids. Um, and I hear stories all the time, and that's really inspiring. And teaching them how to be entrepreneurs themselves is also a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, that's so great. It seems like when watch the news or read, it's sort of upper income people fighting over how the world should be, and yet the majority of the world is low and middle income families. and an extra $1,000 or two a month is life changing for them. And
Oh yeah, no, it makes a difference. And you know what? They enjoy it. I mean, clearly there's sometimes that they don't, but I
yeah,
think they get a lot of gratification from serving families like their own.
yeah, that's fantastic. And looking at your website for BabyQuip, I'm really into intentional culture and how we cultivate that to create more value. But at BabyQuip, you have your core values: enjoying the adventure, fostering community, go above and beyond, innovate and adapt, reward entrepreneurship, clean, safe, and accountable. How did you develop those?
Yeah, so we have been very intentional about our brand values. And I think for the very beginning, we started to think about it. And then at some point, we knew enough about the business to start putting these on paper. And, we have a good sense of who we are. So one of them's what? Enjoy the journey.
Yeah, enjoy the journey. Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's a journey for our customers. It's a journey, who are mostly parents wanting to travel. A lot of them are also grandparents wanting to host their family. So that's a journey. And
yeah.
then for our quality providers to learn how to build a business and do it with BabyQuip, that's a journey. And for my team too, it's also a journey. So, all of those core values really resonate across all our stakeholders.
Yeah, I at one point with our behaviors, we had values and we shifted to behaviors, but with 500 plus team members, every 6 months for each one of the behaviors, they put down how they were applying it to increase the value of the
Oh,
organization,
that's a good idea.
in
Yeah.
improving customer service, internal or external, or cash flow or profitability. And it was amazing to understand how they think about applying the cultural alignment tools intentionally. And it was such a great development tool, for managers to meet with their direct reports, at least monthly to talk about that stuff.
Yeah. We try and reinforce that. And again, we have a community where we reinforce that all the time.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Only 20 people on the team, on the corporate team, though, at this point.
All right, but managing over 2,000 gig economy entrepreneurs
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Do you utilize virtual assistants or anything like that to help manage that community, or have you gotten technology to remove the friction to scale, if you will?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. In our customer service function,
Mhm.
we use chatbots and things like that, and some of them are artificial intelligence enabled,
Mm,
and it's kind of great. I mean, sometimes they can answer questions in a different language perfectly well.
okay.
So, there's that kind of thing. Yeah, we have a lot of operational technology. I think there's going to be a lot of changes to that in the next few years with AI as it
Yep.
starts to seep into it.
Yeah. Do you see much in the way of limits to your growth potential here with BabyQuip?
Um, I no, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, for example, we did a deep dive into Orlando, and 75 million people visit Orlando each year. And a lot of them are families with young children.
Yeah.
And from my standpoint right now, I only think we're serving 2 or 3% of those families with young children. And so
Okay.
when you start to think about that, we also know that families want more than baby gear when they travel.
Mhm.
Now that people are going to vacation rentals and get used to that kind of thing, uh, we're sometimes renting things like blenders and beach gear and hiking gear and yoga gear and pet gear. So we're starting to think about getting into what we're calling Go Quip, everything you need.
Interesting. Would that be a separate brand, do you think, or would
Probably
it?
so. Yeah, because for some of these things, I'll give you an example. On BabyQuip, I don't allow us to rent snorkeling things or swim things because of the liability, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, but I've gone to Hawaii and rented snorkeling gear, right?
Mm.
So we'll want to do it on a different kind of platform because for the baby gear platform, as you could well imagine, trust and safety is so important. It's
Hmm.
got to be sanitized. It's got to be, nothing could be on a recall list. It's got to work really well and so on.
Yeah.
And we have liability insurance and we do background checks on all the quality providers and, you know, all kinds of things because of that category. It'll be kind of interesting to be in another category or brand that maybe doesn't have to be quite that crazy
Yeah.
about all those things.
Yeah. Well, when you get music quip, let me know. Because when I travel, I'll go to a music store and I'll check out a guitar or something. I usually end up, because they don't rent them, I end up buying it and shipping it back home if I like it. But
Oh
just,
my goodness. Well, and baby gear people, and I did this. Maybe do you have children, Lee?
I do
We
not,
haven't covered
I
that.
do not.
Okay, well, when my kids were little, I went to Hawaii and bought and dumped. And that's not cool anymore.
Yeah. Totally agree. In doing research, getting ready for this conversation, you have a real superpower around building trusted brands. Talk about that and how to make that happen. How can our listeners do that better?
Well, brands are honestly all about trust. So it's a way, in a way, that trusted brands is kind of unnecessary. I should just say brands, but um, brand trust is all about a consistent experience, especially with experiences. Okay, consistent experience at a high level, again and again. Um, and to build brand trust, it can't be just words. You have to back it up.
Hmm.
So on BabyQuip, we say clean. And what do? We train our quality providers on cleanliness, on how to clean specific pieces of gear. What are the best kinds of cleaning solutions to use? Should you steam or should you not? I mean, there's all these things that we do to train the quality providers so that we can make a positive representation to the customer that the gear is clean, and if people complain that it's not, and honestly, it happens so rarely,
Hmm.
we take action accordingly. So, whenever you're building a brand, you have to decide what those values are and then put the effort to really delivering against those values.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I feel like most of the time brands are just sort of what looks good, feels good, or sounds good, not so much something that companies are really living.
Now you have to really talk about yeah, exactly. What's the lived experience of it?
Yeah. Uh, so Baby Quip, you tapped into something, not sure what that was or when it happened. You said, wow, this is an amazing idea. And, for entrepreneurs to think about tapping into current trends and then kind of in a way predicting where things could go. Talk about that a little bit. I mean, you've got
Yeah,
a,
that's exactly what happened. I had left my last position at TrustArc in about 2012
Mm.
and post-divorce moved from Alameda to San Francisco, um, in a neighborhood up the street from Airbnb headquarters. Now, this is very early Airbnb, okay?
Okay.
And within a few months, I was renting rooms in my house in San Francisco. And then I bought a house in Santa Fe. Then I bought another house in Santa Fe.
Mm.
And I was making really good money, being an Airbnb and Verba host. And I was thinking about this whole way people are traveling, this new way. It wasn't exactly new, but kind of reinvented. I was thinking about the way people are traveling, and I was advising a bunch of entrepreneurs that were looking at gig economy marketplaces.
Mm.
And it all kind of clicked when I met somebody from Santa Fe who started a company called Baby Airs. And she came out to Silicon Valley where I was advising startup founders. And in our first meeting, I said, well, I should be your CEO. And she didn't say yes right away. But we formed the company just about 8 years ago.
Okay. That's amazing. Um, Match.com, I have to talk about that a little bit. That was the front runner, to all of this. What were your biggest lessons going through that, and probably a lot of lessons at the exit and how early you exited as well?
Oh, yeah, so many lessons. I mean, we were inventing things then. What was called affiliate relationships, I was doing early on, forming partnerships with other internet companies for Match.com. What we call viral marketing, we were doing that with emails and referrals and things like that. What we call social media marketing, we were posting in Usenet groups and things like that.
Yeah.
This is before AdWords. This is before all kinds of things. But I would say again, brand values, we knew that our target market was women, really focus on trying to get to women.
Okay.
And that was not just making it pretty and so on, but actually thinking about what do women want. And our three brand words were safe, anonymous, and fun. Anonymity being important there. Safety, because, still even on the internet, but especially in the mid-90s, a lot of warnings about meeting people online.
Yeah.
And we built in, we were the first to come up with, hey, here's how you meet safely, and things like that. And by focusing on women, it really helped us make some decisions. So, one thing I talk about is, you especially if there's a crowd of people, I ask, how many of you have ever done online dating? And hands go up. How
Mm.
many of you have ever had to put in your weight in pounds?
Mm.
No hands go up. And that's because of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I knew that women would not want to put their weight in. And we were the only one really focused on attracting women with the idea that if we got the women, the men would follow.
Yeah.
And
And
that worked.
safe, anonymous, and fun. Has it kept that all the way through? Do you
I
find?
have no idea at this point. But
Okay.
I would imagine pretty much they have.
Yeah.
Oh, anonymity is a little less important now on some dating sites,
Okay.
but and also I invented the business model which was basically a membership subscription model, which is still predominantly the way these apps and websites work.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do you think it's helped the world in a really good way, and maybe some areas where it hasn't helped, if that's even a thing?
I think there's a lot of people who have really found love
Hmm.
and found somebody, very special to them. And that's like a pure good.
Yeah.
Um, Early on, and I'd say we didn't even know, would this be about people connecting casually or was this going to be marriage focused? We really didn't know.
Yeah.
And what we found pretty early on was a lot of people were on Match to find a lifelong partner. But a couple of things happened. One is they were meeting a lot of people. So we heard from them that they didn't have to settle on somebody who was maybe not the perfect one.
Yeah.
And we learned that, you know, our first set of questions, the first set of questions that we launched with, which were only about five
Hmm.
and had a lot to do with appearance because photos online were not nearly like they are now. Okay. I mean, people did not have digital cameras in 94 and 95. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of the questions were very much about how you looked and, women seeking men, men seeking women, that kind of thing. The questions that we added back in our first go round,
Yeah.
were more relationship. Like, do you have children? Do you want children? Religion. And, and that was because that's what customers were telling us they wanted, which really pointed to more long-term relationships. So, I think that's great. I have read a lot about online dating leading to polarization
Hmm.
because people date more now because they can pick somebody who shares the political views. Okay, I could see
Interesting.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I've read some things about but some of this could be just society was changing, not just online dating, that people date more within their same social or income stratum than
Mhm.
maybe they did a long time ago. I mean, I don't know. The fact of the matter is the cat's out of the bag. You can't really go back, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well,
And now dating online is the predominant way people meet other people.
that's interesting. I've never done that. Have you done that?
I have done that, and I have met some interesting people. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of finding people with similar interests, you know,
Right.
running through and values and all of that. So I think the net positive value created here is, I don't even know how you could calculate it when it comes
Oh
to,
yeah, no. I feel good about my impact on the world. I'll tell you another area where I think it's been important is I think older people were really having a hard time meeting other people.
Mm,
And now, there's dating sites aimed at seniors and so on. So I think it's really made a difference in that regard too.
yeah, I have a very good friend, lost his wife about 9 months ago now, and he's early 80s. And he's kind of lost, and I bet for a lot of seniors, they think maybe that's the last chance they would run at it. I don't know. So were you seeing folks that were in their 70s and 80s finding
One
people?
of my favorite stories at Match, one all-time favorite story, was this older couple came into our offices, which were in San Francisco,
Yeah.
and they wanted to talk to us because they met on Match. And the last time he had been in San Francisco was in VJ Day. Okay, the end of World War II.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That that's incredible.
I know, it was lovely.
Yeah. Well, the impact again, just amazing from what you started there. Way more valuable in my view than the money, whatever it's worth today or at its high point. What you created in the world from a spiritual and emotional energy value created was just over the top.
Yeah, thank you. I like to think so as well.
Yeah. I've heard you in other interviews talk about not having a lot of confidence, and then all of a sudden you've got confidence. What made that happen, and talk about that journey and what the tipping point was to kind of help some of our listeners here.
Well, had I been more confident and had I had more support, and honestly, had I been a guy, I think I would have we sold Match.com in 1998 for less than $8 million. And a year later, it was sold for something like 70 million. But I was no longer part of the team at that point.
Hmm.
And I think that part of it was that Match, even though we were number one in the market in 1998 by a lot, our board members and the investors were more interested in the technology to help newspapers get their classified advertising online.
Mm,
Okay. Like cars and jobs and
yeah.
things like that. Match was only supposed to be a proof of concept. And still in 1998, online personals or the personals category, which we were the closest to, were deemed to be kind of sketchy,
Mm,
sleazy. Okay. Now that's wasn't the batch I was building, but there was still that perception. So they let it go for way too little. I think had I had more family support, emotional support, and probably had I been a guy, somebody would have said, why don't you take it, get the investors, and you take it to the next level? And I didn't do that. And I realized shortly after it was gone that I could have done that and at least taken it to the next level.
yeah.
But I was tired. I I really did not have the support. And I think what's different now is there's a lot more support for female entrepreneurs. I also think that had I had more confidence, I would have gone out to a network of people and talked to them about, well, what should I do here?
Hmm.
But it takes confidence to show vulnerability, to ask for help, and I didn't do it. So I let it go. I had another opportunity a number of years later when I was running trustee. And I knew trustee at the time was a not for profit. I knew we needed to get outside capital to get to the point that we could really expand and better serve our mission, which was to help protect consumer privacy and so on.
Yeah.
And this time I did find the investors myself. I did get my share of the company. I
Mm.
did, uh, uh, I did in the right way. So, I got a do-over, which you don't always get.
Yeah. Well, it looks like you're getting several do-agains.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, BabyQuip reminds me a lot about Match. Just, it's so early stage. It's a
Yeah.
marketplace. It's solving a pretty simple problem, but using unique technology and so on to do it.
Yeah. What advice would you give yourself around confidence 10 years before you actually developed it? Because you have it now.
Yeah, no, I haven't now. Recognize that you probably know more than other people about the thing that you're passionate about,
Hmm.
and just kind of go for it. And if you don't have the confidence, fake it till you make it, pretend you do and see what happens.
Yeah. What's the worst could happen? You fail and learn, and you pick yourself up and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not much you could do. Again, at the time I was a young mom, and also I was tired. And so one of the pieces of advice I often give to women as well is get that virtual assistant, which by the way, I don't have. Um, you know, do things that restore you. I probably do that. You know, I
Yeah.
do take my vacations. I do the things that I want to do.
Yeah. One of my favorite mantras is do less better
Yeah, right.
instead of more worse. I think we all probably can benefit from thinking about that on a regular basis.
Age has its benefits, and some of this is, I don't, I'm much better at hiring. I'm much better at deciding if somebody's not a fit sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the challenge is how could you even hear it until you've experienced it to really become that person and, and have the wisdom and everything else. What could I have heard at 20 or 16 that would have made a difference? Because I'll ask people, Fran, when I get together for sort of think tank, dinners, and like, what advice would you give yourself as a young adult or a teenager? And the advice is so thoughtful and incredible. Then I say, well, let's go around again and give yourself advice you could actually hear and do something with. Because how do you hear it, and how do you apply it?
Yeah,
I think that,
right. Now, well, I have two children, and needless to say, I try and give them some advice now and again. But unfortunately, they have the attitude that they'll listen and then decide. So that's all you can expect, I think.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have to learn too, just like we did. At least I certainly had to. That's for sure. Going through it. Challenges for female entrepreneurs. So I know a lot of male entrepreneurs, folks that would like to be, men. They don't have the confidence either, and imposter syndrome. All this stuff is prevalent there as well. But for women, I think it's even particularly more challenging. And what are some additional challenges that women, face? If they want to become
Well,
entrepreneurs?
the number one. I can't imagine you don't know that women still get less than 3% of venture capital funding.
Hmm.
And let me say that again, less than 3%.
Wow.
I mean, do you think women have less than 3% of good ideas?
Well, no, of course not. Yeah.
Right? Even if that number was 20%, you'd have to say there must be incredible bias.
That makes a lot of sense. One question that comes in just because I'm really big on data, especially coming out of aerospace, measured everything. Safety was all over the place. Um, what so if they get 3%, are they asking half the time? Are they asking 20% of the time? So like, what's the real ratio in asking?
So there's a lot of factors going in there, but
Yeah.
yeah, some of them don't know how to access venture capital, but they are also getting fewer dollars what they ask,
Hmm.
lower valuations when they ask. And all this means that it's harder. And, look, I came into BabyQuip with a very good network of investors and friends and so on. And I was able to raise some money. it's still been very hard to raise the money. Okay. I don't know. And it's sometimes, and while I've raised enough, it's still been a little bit hand to mouth, and which means that there are times where I can't just say, yes, let's plaster Orlando with billboards. Okay. I haven't been able to make maybe that kind of success or maybe that kind of mistake, but I haven't even been able to do it.
Yeah.
I have to be more careful. Now, it could be that female entrepreneurs being a little bit more risk limited, not because they are averse, but because they don't have enough of the money, means that they turn out to be fairly successful
Yeah. Yeah.
and return
I've
more
always,
to their investors.
I've always thought having less money makes us smarter.
It could, but every once in a while, I'd like to make a big hag mistake, you know?
Right. Yeah. Have you learned anything about, are there particular funds that invest in women
Yeah,
entrepreneurs?
there's a lot of female-oriented funds and or investors who really like to invest in women. So I have investment from How Women Invest and minus investors like Teresa Gao and Julian Manus and some others. But there even is some research that female entrepreneurs have a penalty by having female investors behind them.
Hmm. That's interesting.
So,
Hmm.
I think that I try and ignore that stupid stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always had the philosophy that I'm never going to take money from anyone, because if I believe in what I'm doing, I'm gonna make it work. And not having money has always made me a lot more successful with the startups, and then with exits ranging from 7, 8, and 9 figure exits in different businesses. The couple times I made mistakes where I had a ton of money and I just kind of, got a team going and looked the other way and did something else, and then, had to write off a fair amount a couple of times. Net effect has been good, but I've always thought, hey, if it's something I'm doing, I don't want to take somebody else's money if I believe
Yeah,
in it.
no, I mean, that's good. But like, I didn't quite have enough money to do that into BabyQuip, and there's no way we could have scaled.
Yeah.
And on top of that, um, you know, there's some businesses that are just capital intensive. Ours is not particularly capital intensive, but there are some that really are.
Yeah. Well, I agree it's necessary in a lot of cases. It's just, you said something earlier about women want to get a good return for the investors. I think that's absolutely true. In my experience, there's a lot of men that are raising money for startups, and they're more interested in raising the money than getting a return for the investors. And it's terrible when I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be very clear. And you have to know who your investors are and make sure that you're on the same page.
Yeah, yeah, and have good partners, good cultural fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have the rights to write a book called She Started It? I heard you mention that in another interview, and I thought that.
No, no. That was directed by somebody else. But actually, I do have a working title for a book called Female Seeking Startup. And it kind of takes the idea of Match.com and different uh, dating profiles or different things that you might say in dating profile and applying them to my own experience in the startup world. And, the subhead would be from Match.com to BabyQuip. What's more perfect than that?
Yeah, I think it's perfect. I can't wait for you to actually write the book, and I'll read it as soon as it comes out.
Okay, yeah, I should really get on it. It's hard. That kind of thing is hard to do while you're running a startup.
Yeah, it takes time. I've written 2 books. I've got a third one in the works right now, and I just fit it in the cracks everywhere that I can.
Yeah, yeah. I probably need to get a coach and so on. And actually, I was going to point that out. I think one of the things that changed between the time I was in Match and the time I was at Trustee is I did get an executive coach who
Hmm.
really spent some time with me on, hey, here's your gifts. Here's what you do when you're defensive. Here's what you do when you're feeling better about things. And that gave me a lot of perspective.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, my business today, ETW, it's coaching CEOs, working with companies to help them create value faster, and all of us benefit from those environments.
Absolutely. I think was really, really good for me.
Yeah. Working in the nonprofit and for-profit worlds, what are the bigger differences between the two of those for you?
Um, I do like for profit, not just because of the potential monetary returns, but also just the real focus on what your primary job is, which is to create the value and profit and so on.
Yeah.
Nonprofits sometimes have multiple stakeholders and multiple goals, and sometimes that gets a little unwieldy. Um, on the other hand, I think one of the things that I try and get in my for-profit company like BabyQuip is that passion and commitment that people have in the nonprofit world. And, I think for us, we are very motivated by helping families have a better vacation
Mhm.
by, which means maybe they sleep better or they have more fun or spend more time with their kids. I'm motivated by, as I said earlier, our quality providers becoming entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And for my team and I think we get a lot of gratification from that. And that TrustArc protecting privacy was important to us as well. So I think a for-profit company can benefit by thinking about their impact beyond just the monetary
Yeah,
return.
well, to me, it goes way past that. Like all the other stuff that you're talking about, the families have better vacations. Other families that are these gig economy entrepreneurs, they've got more income to help out. They enjoy it. There's a sense of
Yeah,
account. Like
yeah.
all of that to me is way more valuable, and I hope you scale 100-fold from where you're at and make the money to scale even faster in the world. I mean, it's such a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I think so.
Oh yeah, absolutely for sure. I've heard you talk about surviving down markets. Those that survive will probably should be in business. Sometimes in good markets, some are successful in spite of themselves. But what are the best ways to think about surviving a down market? Because
Well,
you,
needless to say, the biggest impact to us was the pandemic. We were on Shark Tank on March 6th, 2020.
mm,
And I had a party in my house, probably 50 people. Nobody got sick, but that was the last party a lot of people went to.
mm,
It was a viewing party for Shark Tank, right? And when faced with a global pandemic, you kind of have to get down to what do you really have to do? And I'm very thankful. The team that I had then, almost everybody took pay cuts.
mm,
I was very fortunate in that we had raised some money right before that time. And then, in fact, in March, I raised some more before I think we all knew how bad the pandemic would be. And then, of course, I got government money, which was a first for me.
yeah,
So we were able to scale down. We also introduced BabyQuip cleaning, where we clean baby gear for local families. Okay, so nobody's traveling, but you're staying home and you've got a gross car seat or stroller.
yeah,
So it was good to tell our community that there was something else they could do, even though nobody was, or far fewer people were traveling.
yeah,
And so, and we spent some time building some functionality that we wanted to build. So by the time February of 2021 came around, especially Florida, we started a big uptick in our business. And now when Shark Tank is on reruns, you know, and we always know it because we see a little, increase in our traffic, a little blip, or somebody sends me some email. So it's like, okay, Shark Tank was on again. And it's a gift that keeps on giving. But now I look at those numbers and I'm like, oh my God, those numbers are so low compared to where we are now.
yeah. So just you faced reality, looked at what you could do given what's going on, and came up with ways to add more value to your communities out there. You just sounds like you went for it really quick. You didn't wait a few months to see what was going to happen.
No, no, we kind of went for it quick. Yeah. I tend to do that. And maybe that is a little bit of an age benefit,
Yeah.
but I tend to make decisions pretty quickly
Hmm. Yeah.
and don't really hem and haw that much.
I think most probably have a feeling in their gut they need to make a decision or do something, but they wait. Why do you think they wait? Is it fear?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's sometimes I've waited on making a decision, mostly in my personal life, but business, I usually have a pretty good gut.
Yeah. Every time I've
And then
waited.
you learn how to trust your gut. And then once you trust your gut, I mean, one of the things I talk to people about, and is are you who you are, or do you become who you are?
Hmm.
Right. So yes, I am now business person, entrepreneur. Those are the frameworks that I use to look at opportunities and make decisions and so on. Is that because I always was, or because now that I am, I've embraced that and
Hmm.
then I do that? See, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. I feel like I've refined who I am over time. I'm so much more today than I was decades ago, but I'm refined. Like it was all there, just like chiseled it out of something into a value creation existence that's just going to keep getting better.
Yeah. I mean, in any case, maybe that reflection is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think so for sure. Do you have a high risk tolerance? What's your risk profile? And
Yeah, no, I think I do. And again, that's like one of the things. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, so for sure I should have a high risk profile. You know, I mean, there's certain things that come along with it. I'm also called by my friends gadget girl because I'm always buying little stuff and playing around and whatever. Well, okay, yeah, of course. You know, um, on the other hand, I always felt that I was very responsible for my family and thought through things that way. So yes, I have a high risk profile.
okay. Yeah, and being in business, I think if you want to accomplish things in a big way, you kind of have to go for it, and you're going to take a risk here or there.
Yeah. And, there are certain things, times I turned down things that would have turned out well. I
Mhm.
mean, you look at a whole career and you could say, who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a crystal ball. Yeah,
Yeah, right, right.
yeah,
And timing could be everything. Like the example with Match, had they held on to it for another year, there would have been no question about selling it, you know.
yeah, yeah. That makes total sense. So I love on your website how you have your team and you hover over it and it shows a much younger picture, some of them even baby pictures, and what they used to think about. And you used to think about being president of the United States. I love that.
I always like to think big. I wouldn't want that job now, though.
It would, yeah, it would take a little bit of time to clean it up. There's some challenges, but we have to keep
Yeah.
trying. We have to keep trying.
I think early on, my dad called me baby lady because I think I was always a little bit like, this is the way I want things.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. From this conversation, what was there one big takeaway in our discussion today for you that stood out?
Well, I really appreciate your focus on impact, because that's what it comes down to. There's that try thing. Okay, you're not going to think about working more when you're on your deathbed, for sure. You're going to think more about being with your friends and so on. But I do think you might think about impact.
Yeah, I think everybody does. For me, it's how I feel going through life that matters. And if I stacked a bunch of money on my end table, is that going to make me feel better? Not really. But the emotional energy and the connectedness with my community, family, friends, coworkers, that feels really good.
Yeah, that's right.
I love it when I get calls because I've, with different companies hired probably thousands of employees over the years when they're running things bigger than what I built or senior leadership positions and families that became families because they worked at one of my businesses. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
oh my gosh, it just feels
Right.
amazing.
Every once in a while I get a note from somebody and they'll tell me something that I inspired them or taught them how to think about looking at something differently. And yeah, makes my day.
Yeah. And it makes the world a better place for us to engage with. So I love that too. Fran, if our listeners want to learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way to find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn under Fran Maier, Maier. They could also learn more about BabyQuip at babyquip.com. That's BabyQuip.com.
Okay. Well, thank you. This has been a real pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too, Lee. Let me
Yeah.
know.
Okay, for sure. And for our listeners, this has been the Show Your Value podcast. If you got value out of today's episode, please like and leave a review. And until next time, show your value to the world.